You'll notice I gave you one short one and one a little bit longer. I don't think I got one of those. That's all right. Yeah, I've got it here. The longer version would be the Grace Group leaders. The shorter version would be the one that we're giving out to everybody who's in a Grace Group, and probably even people who might not be in a Grace Group. And what we're going to cover today is what's in here without reading all of this. I don't want us to sit here and read through all of this. But just go over the main parts of these lessons. And we'll talk about what you can use as a Grace Group leader, what you don't have to use. It's really going to be up to you. You know, Wes probably, his won't look the same on a Sunday morning as Paul and Kelly's will on Monday night. There's a time difference that you're working with. So Wes might have to pick one area of this and focus on it. And Paul and Kelly, you know, or Aaron's group on Wednesday night, they might be able to do a little more fuller version of it. But what I did, if you see on that first page, I wrote out a devotion. And I just picked the word devotion just to kind of summarize what I'm doing here. What I mean by the devotion is this is something for you to read before the class, sometime before the class. You'll have the whole book. You can read that. Your students do not have this. Okay? And what I'm doing with the devotion is just kind of, in my words, writing out what the gist of that week's lesson is about. I've got a passage of scripture picked. I think for love, for the first one, I picked John chapter 21, like verses 1 through 17, with 15 and 17 being the main one. That's Peter's restoration. You know, lovest thou me, Peter, yea, Lord, that one. So that would be the one that you're reading up on, and then you could prepare a few open-ended questions on that if you'd like. Do your own questions. And then you see here, I even wrote out like a few points to go with that and an application for that. When it comes to devotion, you guys can use this verbatim if you want. You can have somebody in the group read it, or you can read it. Or you can paraphrase it however you want to do it. In other words, Pat wanted me to put enough material in here so if somebody was leading a Grace Group for the very first time and they were a little nervous, they could pretty much go from page 1 all the way to the end and have enough material to do that Grace Group. That doesn't mean that I expect everybody else to do everything that's in here. Even the devotion, if you want to make your own devotion, pick another passage of scripture that you think fits the theme and use that, that's fine. I just put this as an example for you to follow. So then you see here, on the second page I've got there where to begin meeting. That would be the actual start of the class. A lot of what I wrote kind of instructive to the leaders are in brackets. And Pastor Robert, when we put this together in a book, is going to give us a much better format. You know, I mean, I'm sure we'll have some of it shaded and different size fonts and all of that. So it'll be easier than just reading the straight text like you are now. So to begin meeting, and this is for week 1. That would probably be your most complicated week, you know, because you're introducing all of this material. Prayer, introductions, make sure everybody's got stuff. You see that next page where I've got an assessment test? I have one of those for each one of these disciplines. Week 1, there's only one because it's on love. But in week 2, there's a 5-question, 5 questions. The only one that I would really think that you should, I would suggest, maybe we'll do it on a different handout than what's in their book. I think you guys should see their answers to these. The rest of them, you can have them do them at home. You can use it for discussion if you want. This one, especially if you have new people in your group, you know, you might want to look at their answers to these. I've got a couple of questions in there that, you know, if they strongly disagree with, you might want to, you know, share the gospel. Have a little private talk with them and just share the gospel, you know. In other words, like number 5, I believe that God's love changes everything, and because that is true, I will someday be in heaven. If they strongly disagree with that statement, you know, that would be a good opportunity for you to sit down and talk with them. Not in front of the group, not publicly, but privately, just share the gospel with them. And after that, you know, leave it up to the Lord. So on week 1, I would do a handout with these. which you would get back. And you could, that way you could see it. We'd have a separate handout. Okay, the rest of the weeks, just let them do it, they can do it at home, they can do it before class, whatever. And at the end of the class, at the end of the 6 weeks, if you want, you could go back and look at everybody's scores that they have. They're all kind of designed to the strongly agree side, so most of them should be over on that side. But you could go back and add all the scores up and average your groups and see if there was any spiritual, growth in the 6-week period if you wanted. Like I said, a lot of this is optional, it's up to you. I've got then key discussion points would fill in the blanks. This will be in their booklet, in their little short booklet. See, theirs starts with the assessment test and then goes to the key discussion points. I've got some additional Bible verses and questions to go along with each one of those discussion points. I think we did 4 of them in week 1. And basically on that, again, I would use that as the meat of the class kind of, and try to get as much discussion out of that as possible. And then before dismissing, in week 1, you're going to go over what's expected on that home, because we do have a home part to this as well. If you keep going through there, I've got suggested for take-home study. And what I've done on that is I pick a passage of scripture for them to read, and I kind of break it down verses, like I've got 1 through 7 there, and I've got a little something about that. And it gives them an opportunity in their journal, which will be in here, to do a little writing of their own, how that spoke to them.
Hey, Mark.
Yeah.
We can do this later, but can I give you a suggested edit for that title?
Yeah.
Instead of suggested for take-home study?
Yeah.
Do 2 things. 1, take out the suggested part, and maybe we play on the CrossFit theme and call it an exercise. Or something.
Okay. Yeah, we can do that.
That's so
Good idea. And again, Pastor Stephen wanted this to kind of resemble like a 40 days, like you do with 40 days of love and 40 days purpose driven and all of that. So we're given enough material where if they want, they have something to do every day. I've got the one main study for at home. That one is on 1 Corinthians 13. There's a Bible memorization for that week. And then I've got a daily warm-up. I did get that one kind of following me. And for that, I just put down one verse for you to look up per day. And sort of, I wrote in parentheses there kind of a paraphrase of what that verse is about, having to do with the theme of the week. For instance, Deuteronomy 6:5 is love for God is commanded, and so on. So everybody in the group, if they're getting into it, they would have a little something to do every day. You can see then we left room for sermon notes and a journal. And what we're asking everybody to do is take notes from Pastor Stephen's sermon. I would use that, as part of my class discussion. Just kind of see what everybody got out of that. You could open your class with that, because all of these will be following his sermons, right? Like the Sunday morning. Yeah, okay. So I don't have that at the front, but as a grace group leader, that would be a good place to start your classes on that morning's sermon. His sermons are going to be, they're not lined up. He doesn't know all of what I'm doing, and he's looked it over, but we should be getting 2 different biblical areas. I think he's going to be mainly in 1 or 2 Timothy, one of those 2. So you're going to have a wide variety of scripture to pick from and to use. And then finally, the last part of it, and this was a request. I think Aaron's group has requested this. I've got additional study for further consideration. I call it one for the core. When you've done every push-up you can do and every pull-up you can do, your drill instructor will always say, you got to give me one more for the core. So that's what I named this passage here. It's one for the core. It's a little bit more involved, it's a little bit more in-depth maybe than what the first devotion or the classroom.
And that's because we have quite a few that are gonna have some overlap that come on Wednesday night that are already plugged into a group, so rather than having duplicates.
It would be perfect for Aaron's group on Wednesday night, where you've got people who've already been through the one class. Really, if you wanted, and like for Sunday morning, if you didn't have time to get into this, you could use it at another, you could use it later on. It would be, there would be 6 of these, and it would make another little more in-depth series. Or if you particularly like this better than the main one for that week, you could use that. So, there's a lot of material here, but I'm not expecting everybody to use every part of it. Like I said, I've put enough in here. If you were brand new to it, you could go by this page by page and have more than enough material to do an hour class. If you have been doing it a while, you can pick what you want to use out of here. But the main parts of it are the devotion that you read first and be prepared to teach, and then your key points to that, the sermon notes, and then their take-home study, which they'll be journaling about. Now, if I was leading a group, my suggestion would be probably the first 15 minutes or 20 minutes of my group would be the sermon notes and the take-home stuff. Like in week 2, you should be talking about what they, in other words, don't ask them to go home and do a lot of journaling and never even have a chance to discuss it. So if you're doing that, you're not gonna go through every bit of this, and that's perfectly okay. Again, the students, the people in your group, they don't have all of this. They've only got the assessment test, the fill in the blank part, and then rooms for the take home, and then rooms to journal and whatnot. Okay, so that's kind of the pattern that every one of the classes will follow. I haven't figured out what I'm going to do with week 6 other than just tie it all together, but that would cover your first 5 weeks.